Here on this show, I talk a lot about not waiting until you feel ready.
Hmm.
So, to everybody who's listening, my guest today has a completely different angle on the same problem. What happens after you start, right? So, when the business grows past what one person can hold, and you are the thing that's slowing it down. So, he spent his career in the second seat, scaled his wife's company to multiple seven figures, and now runs the COO Solution. So, Derek, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aarti. I'm so happy to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. And I think we already started on something so powerful, but I'll get back to it in a second.
Mm.
So, starting with what you do and how you help people grow their companies.
Hmm.
What's the actual sign that a founder has become the bottleneck before they would even admit or say that out loud to someone else?
Sure. Great question. Um, they know the sign. I think the real test is whether they have the awareness to become present to the sign that's there in their business, where it's become either more that they can handle, the founder's the bottleneck. I sometimes describe it as they've lost their mojo, they've lost their kind of passion, their excitement about being involved in their own business because they've built something where the tail wags the dog. Like the tail wags the dog, meaning the business is running them, they're not running the business, and there's no fault, right? There's no judgment here. It's entrepreneurship is a journey. So I think it's natural for business owners at that point to realize that if they want to grow, if they want to scale, if they want to really get to the next level of what they want in their business, whether that be to 2x, 10x, exit, maybe not work so darn hard in the business, I think the awareness is that what got you here is not necessarily going to get you there. And that when you can partner with somebody that is actually wired, they have the set, the strengths, the mindset, the capabilities to run a company, and I know this might sound contrarian, better than the business owner. I think that's a huge wake-up call. And my impression is that some business owners become aware to that fact and then they discount it and they say, I'm going to keep pushing, I'm going to keep trying, I'm going to work harder. But this is an element of, I'm sure you're aware, working smarter, not harder. I often describe the idea of like the business owner is like pushing the boulder of their business up the hill. The boulder is getting bigger. The hill is getting longer. It's getting steeper. And when they realize that I don't want to keep doing it this way, is there another way? And when they realize that if they kind of get out of their own way and step into more of what a CEO, founder, visionary is meant to be doing in their business and let somebody who's a true operator operate and run the business, I think that's when they get real good momentum and confidence and they get their mojo back. So they have to have, it's a mindset shift. They have to have the awareness that it doesn't have to be this way.
Right. And then you obviously didn't learn that from a book, right?
No, no.
um, you actually helped your wife scale her company to multiple seven figures. I want to get into the story. So give us the before
Sure.
and give us the after. I want to see the full arc so people understand
Yeah.
because many of them are on this side of the arc right now. And I
Yep.
for sure was there 2 years ago.
Okay.
Paint the story so anybody who's listening and watching this, they
Sure.
actually can understand what that is.
Sure. Um, I talk about this a lot, and I always preface it by saying this is not a lesson in working with your spouse. I know for a lot of people, even the idea is there's no way I would be able to work with my spouse for a number of different reasons, and that's for a different topic for a different show. But my wife and I had personal dreams, personal aspirations. Part of that, even at that point, was to maybe have not necessarily move to France, but to have more personal freedom and fulfillment. My wife is half French, half American, and there's this independent, free spirit and having the ability to create something. And so she created a very successful business coaching company. I was working on Wall Street at the time. I was very much in the corporate world, so nothing to do with entrepreneurship. And then we decided in 2008 that I was going to leave my corporate job and we were going to work together. And I kind of describe it as the analogy of the idea was one plus one equals three. I didn't know much about her business, but I felt because we had the same mindset, we had the same motivation, I would figure things out and we'd be able to do things together in order to move things forward. But I started out in the mailroom. I didn't know anything about her business. I didn't know anything about online marketing. I didn't know anything about business coaching. I didn't know anything about how she made money. But I knew I could bring my skills, my talents, my zone of genius in running teams and building systems and structure and process. Basically, the backstage of a company, the foundation. She would describe it that when she reached 1 million in her business the first year, it was built on toothpicks and band-aids. I built the infrastructure that allowed it to scale. And I realized over a few years that was not easy in terms of figuring out what our roles were, and there was always the husband-wife dynamic, so that was a little bit of a tricky thing to play as well. That that was my lane. I really craved the second seat spot. That was my zone of genius. I love running other people's companies. And ironically, now I'm running my own company, but that's 16 years later. Actually, yeah, 16 years later in 2024 is when I started my company, but I've been doing COO work for 16 years before that. And so that was our lane. You know, she was the day-to-day CEO, I was the day-to-day COO. And then we scaled that to multiple seven figures. And then a few years after we moved here to France in 2016, I stepped out of the day-to-day because it was a self-managed company, right? People, right seats, it's a multiple seven figures. It still is to this day. And I was able to take that work and give that to other clients that maybe were interested in what I had done. I tell the joke, some people would tap me on the shoulder and say, I need a Derek. I need, I need for you to do for my business what you did for your wife's business. And I did
Great.
do that and I enjoyed it, but there was only so much of me to go around. So yeah.
Yeah. Give us a little bit of insight. Like, what were those initial years when you were working together before you were able to scale it? Give us a
Sure.
couple of stories, maybe something which was so insanely hard. How did you figure it out? Or
Yeah.
maybe give us a happy story
Yeah.
where you actually thought it was going to work out and maybe it went sideways.
Yeah. I'm an open book, so I'm happy to share a number of different transparent stories. I think the first story was the very first day that we started working together. I remember this so clearly. We were living on the coast of Connecticut, and we have a little beach in our neighborhood, and we took our clipboard and a cup of coffee. The kids were off at day camp or whatever. This was in July of 2008. So this is exactly almost 18 years ago. And we were sitting there and we're looking at each other being like, oh my gosh, what did we just do? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do in the company. I don't know anything about it. And there was a little bit of like, okay, is this going to work? Now, the good thing is, based on our relationship being strong in our marriage, we always said that if this didn't work,
Yeah.
us working together, I would go and get a job back on Wall Street. That was the default. That was the fallback because we weren't willing to jeopardize a relationship to try to make us work together, work out. So there was that part, which was in the beginning, like very fearful. Like, did we make the right decision? Or we went in way overhead? But I would say in the first few months, we were both able to realize that I was able to bring things to the table that goes back to that analogy of one plus one equals three. She would create something. She would come up with an idea and I would go and implement it. She would go to a conference and buy some course about membership programs or continuity programs and just give it to me. I would go and make it happen. That was my zone. That was her zone. So that was an interesting part in the beginning. The first couple of years as well, after we were successful, I kind of was craving a little bit of the front stage. I was like, I'm always the backstage guy, but I'm the one that's like running your marketing and running your team and you're getting all the accolades. And I'm like, where's my, everybody likes to feel significant, right? So I'm like, should I speak on stage? Should I run an event? Should I do a product launch? Should I have a website? Should I have my, and I did that for a couple of years. And what I realized, it wasn't feeling natural for me. It's not like I didn't want the spotlight, but I felt like I was doing it out of obligation to prove something to myself, as opposed to really honoring that, listen, I'm damn good at scaling multiple
Yeah.
seven-figure companies. And so let me just be more of that. And we took some assessments in that period as well that really helped us align on what our lane was. So that helped. And then the third thing I'll share, which is just a little bit of a hack, which we learned after many years in the beginning, because listen, people would ask us all the time, your business partners together, your husband and wife together, your parents together with three small children. Like, how do you guys make that work? And I would describe the story, and I didn't do this in the very beginning, I had to learn the hard way, is that I had to wear two hats. I had to wear Derek husband hat and
Yeah.
Derek COO hat, and never shall the two cross. Because if we were at the dinner table my brain's on, she can shut down. My brain's always on. And if the kids are in bed and we're having a glass of wine on the porch, and I'm like, so did you see that email about that client who wanted to back out? And just, you can't do that. I'm just bringing all of my work energy into our personal energy. And conversely, if we're in a work environment, we call each
Yeah.
other Fabian and Derek. We don't use nicknames. We don't talk about date night or anything else. We keep it clear and clean because if it started to blur the lines, then it feels like we're always on, we're never off. We can't enjoy our work
Yeah.
relationship siloed and our personal relationship siloed. And in our experience, for me, that worked extraordinarily well to keep those hats separate from each other.
Yeah, and I love this so much. I think my brain is going in multiple different directions, but I'll keep it very concise because we have to get through the conversation.
Mm,
I think the first thing you said was that really stood out to me is how do you maintain those boundaries? And I
mm,
think boundaries is such a powerful thing. If you install it in relationships, in business, with your team, with your partner, I
hmm
think they can go a long way. So that's one. And second is something you said about how do you like what's the agreement we have where
Yeah.
because I run diagnostics for mid-market companies and I
hmm
always advise them you have to have a kill switch.
Yeah.
The kill switch is so powerful. People think it's my plan B because I don't really believe in my plan A. But
hmm
that's okay. That's part of life. That's part of business. But what is the kill switch? If this doesn't work out after 90 days, based on the success criteria we've defined, what are we going to do? And it's
Yeah.
okay. And I love that part because you said, what if this doesn't work out? We'll just go back to my
Yeah.
job and just
Yeah.
be the old good couple we were. And
Yeah.
that's powerful because that's like a help button there and you can press
Yeah.
anytime you think. And most cases, when you know the help button is there, people tend to go longer because they have that safety net in some
Yeah.
sense, right?
Yeah.
So
I
that
love
was
that.
really powerful.
I love that analogy. I mean, my wife is a quintessential entrepreneur. She loves to start things. She loves to initiate things. She's what I
Yeah.
would describe as a talk thinker. She talks means she takes action, then she thinks about it. I'm a think talker. I have to
Yeah.
think about it and then I'm going to take action. So we're able to kind of meet in the middle in that way. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the decision didn't come lightly. It's not like we woke up one day and we're like, I think I might leave my corporate job. And, especially in 2008 with the financial crisis, everything else. But it had been a year in the making of, what would this look like? What would the success criteria be? What if, like, what are
Yeah.
the pros and cons? What if we do? What if we don't? So there was a lot of role playing into how this would play out to make sure at the end of the day, the decision was just the decision, but there was a lot that led up to it to get us to the point to feel confident to make the decision, which then I think cascaded into what we did together.
Yeah. And I don't think I captured, but remind me again, why did you choose to leave the job? Was there something that was pulling her in that direction, or was it your, like, how did you guys come up to that?
It's a great question. So the simple answer is, listen, my wife was running her coaching business. She would, at the end of the day, be like, oh my gosh, I helped this woman amazing. She grew her
Mm.
practice. She's now making 150K. I changed her life and it's amazing. And all these, there was a huge sense of fulfillment, mission, and impact.
Yeah.
And yes, there was a lot of financial flexibility, meaning there was a lot of runway for her to be able to like, you do this and you can grow your business even more. On the flip side, I was commuting into Manhattan every day, working 12-hour days, and I'm like pushing buttons on a screen. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the corporate track. And I wanted that security. I craved that security. And the significance was there in terms of titles, in terms of
Yeah.
salary and everything else. But I very vividly remember I was taking the commuter rail from the suburb of New York in Connecticut to Manhattan, and I was sitting on like a 5:15 train in the morning. And I remember sitting across this gentleman wearing a very like worn down overcoat, reading the Wall Street Journal with a briefcase that looks like it's been in use for 50 years. And he looked exhausted. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I can be that guy in the next 40, 50 years. And I wasn't getting because the shadow was right in front of me of like, I'm not getting the mission, the impact, the fulfillment, the purpose. It's not there for
Yeah.
me. It's just a paycheck, a handsome paycheck, but there was no real reward. And I'm seeing it front and center with what she was doing. So I felt like I'm drinking some of the Kool-Aid of what you're doing here. And because we were both thinking about how we could live our life, over time, I only had so much time to be able to like take a vacation or, take a
Yeah.
Friday off. And you know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of freedom there. My wife is driven by freedom. She's French. She wants to be free. She wants to be independent. So that was part of the inclination of if I wasn't going to do this, could I do that? What would that look like? And your kill switch analogy makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. And then that kind of got us to the point where, had momentum.
Yeah, for sure. So that's your side of the story, though. How did she take it on once you came on board or you told her that's what I want to do? Um, how was that experience?
I'm going to be brutally honest, and I've said this publicly before because I think it's worth saying. If I had a dime for every time my wife said, "This is my business," I would
I
be a
love
millionaire.
that.
But it's true. And listen, it was a women-owned business, 100%. But I think one of the things we did in the very, very beginning to level the playing field, right? So she's front stage, I'm backstage. I'm like the wizard and the Wizard of Oz. I'm making everything happen, but she's the one that's getting all of the marketing, the sales, the clients, and everything else. And that was the business model. That was the arrangement. That's what we had signed up for. Other than that short little stint where I was like, maybe I should speak on stage. Maybe I want to do a product launch. But the thing we did in the very beginning is we paid ourselves equally. No matter what we
Mm,
were doing, we were on the level playing field because I think it would have changed the dynamic if she was making more,
yeah,
considerably more based on what she was generating directly into the business. I wasn't generating revenue directly. I was creating the environment for
yeah,
the revenue to be directed, to be generated indirectly. The systems, the teams, the structure, the
yeah,
process, and everything else. So I think she knew that she needed something like that. And she knew also that if it made sense for us to be able to do it in this way because we found out that we could work well together, great. But
yeah,
again, it goes back to if we figure it out that we weren't going to be able to work well together, then we weren't going to work at all. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and was there, so you started really in the right sentiment, this is my business, right? When you work with founders, what is the point when they actually start to realize, okay, I do need help?
Mm.
And I was in those shoes up until 2 years ago. Why do they take so long to come to that realization that it's okay to ask for help because I'm not going to be able to do it alone?
Such good questions. I'll give you two answers, and I'm saying them out loud just as placeholders so I know which ones I'm going to come back to. That's the way my brain thinks, right? I have to think before I talk, right? So number one is it's what they've always done. It's a conditioned
Mhm.
mindset. And number two, it's the question of significance. I'll start with number two, and I call this the operator to owner mindset shift. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand, but when you got started as a business owner, you did everything out of necessity. You didn't have the luxury, unless you were financially wealthy, independently wealthy, or bankrolled, to build a sales team, create a marketing strategy, delegate. You have everybody do the day to day. That doesn't exist. We bootstrap. We're out there doing the marketing, the sales, the operations, the finance, the delivery. I say sometimes we're building the website and we're also doing our bookkeeping, right? And then over time, at some point, we
Mm,
realize maybe I shouldn't be doing my bookkeeping. I'll get a finance seat person. Maybe I shouldn't be doing my website. I'll get a marketing person. And you start to build. But it all still comes back to you. And I use the analogy of Bob. Bob is a business owner, owns a very successful, this is not a client of ours, but just a generic Bob, owns a very successful financial services company, meaning doing like wealth management, investment advisory, etc., doing multiple seven figures, been doing it for 20 years, loves the work,
yeah,
loves the clients,
yeah.
loves the team. He also loves that everything goes through Bob. How do we onboard a client? Ask Bob. How do we do a marketing event workshop? Ask Bob. How do you deliver the service to the client? Ask Bob. Well, how do you do the bookkeeping? Well, Susan, but Bob always checks, right?
Yes.
And part of that is because there's this white knuckle of like delegation, which is they'll never go do it as good as me. It's going to take them longer. I have to check it anyway. But also there's the mindset shift, which is if I'm not involved in all of these key aspects of the business as the operator, and I
Yeah.
truly step into a CEO owner seat, what do I
Mm,
do? Where's my significance? I like feeling the need of everybody having to come to me.
yeah.
And so when you start to release the white knuckle and realize that you get to choose what you want to be involved with, rather than out of necessity what you need to be involved with, it
Mhm.
creates a whole different spectrum of how the business owner thinks. And what happens, I feel, is they go back and tap, I call their North Star. I have goosebumps talking about it. Why did you start this business?
Yeah.
What was the vision? What was the passion? What was all of that was there, huge front and center. But over time, it got lost in the shuffle. It was like the balloon ball got pushed into the water and it's trying to bounce back up. Where I want more vision, I want more future, I want this, but like I can't because I'm dealing with bad team members and crappy processes and everything
Yeah.
else. And so I feel like when they realize that their true lane of where they add the most value, the most ROI, and the most significance as a business owner is to be the true visionary that they are meant to be and get somebody or some processes to run the business, that's where I think it's a huge dynamic. And when they start to see that, I think two things happen. Number one, I know it's a long answer to the question. I'll talk quickly. I think two things happen. Number one, they see the clarity of what the business can be more of. They
Yeah.
see a bigger future and they get excited by that. And from the excitement, it builds their confidence. And from the confidence, they can make bigger decisions and bolder bets on what's going to happen. That's the lane of a business owner. The lane is not to be involved in the day-to-day minutia. So when they can separate the two, owner versus, or I say operator versus owner, and you can cross that chasm from one to the other, it's like the clouds shall part.
For sure, for sure. And I think anybody who, which is anybody who's wants to start a business or they have already started, I think the goal is not to take pride in wearing multiple hats all the time.
Yeah,
From experience, I can tell how quickly I burned out from context switching every single day.
sure.
And then I had to clean up my calendar and say, this is pure content day.
Yeah,
Creative energy is way different than my saleswoman
of
energy,
course. Yes.
right? And then
Yeah,
it's completely different when I'm just trying to be a helpful team member to my team.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
have to separate them so much that I'm only wearing one hat and it's not draining me at the end of the day when I'm done doing that.
Of course, I think as a bit, that's so true, Aarti. I think their business owners realize because they started out as a jack of all trades and it's in their DNA.
Yeah.
I always say, listen, you could do everything in your business. You could do the website. You could figure that out. You could do the bookkeeping. You could figure that out. But should you? Maybe in the
Yeah.
beginning it was a necessity, but now do you want to? I've never met unless you're a bookkeeping company, I never met a CEO that wants to do the bookkeeping, right? If they're
Yeah.
trying to grow and scale the company. And I think the other thing that's also very interesting to add on top of this, we work with a lot of companies that are coming to us from exit planning, meaning they want to exit, they want to sell. That's their North Star. So we're doing everything in the process to get the business to be sale ready. Because in the analogy I described about Bob's business, you can't scale Bob. You can't
Yeah.
sell Bob's business when it's based on Bob. But Bob wants to sell the business, so you have to make it
Mhm.
not about Bob.
Absolutely. And I personally use my kids' words for signals all the time. So I'm a big believer on when you are trying to get somewhere, the universe sprinkles those signals, but you
Of
have to
course.
be on the lookout. So I came
Yeah.
back from an event earlier this year. We weren't doing a lot of content, but I came back from the event and I was really fired up. So I sat down an entire day and I recorded like 100 pieces, I think, in a day. And
Wow.
then there was time to edit. So I was just sitting and editing. I think it was Saturday. And my son said, my oldest, he said, Mama, can you just hire someone to do the editing so you
Oh, I
can
love it.
actually sit and enjoy the movie with me?
I
And I was
love
like, signal. That's a
it. Yep.
signal. I didn't
That
start the
is,
business to be a video editor. So I went on my phone, WhatsApped in a group I'm part of, and I said, hey guys, we're going
yeah.
pro on content. I need a post-production team. Who do you recommend? They sent something. I sent them a text, and I don't even interview people. I just give them an assignment and I said, what can you do with it? Show me. And then if you
Yeah.
do it well, you're hired. And they said, do you want to meet us on a Zoom? And I was like, I don't care. I'll just see the work and we'll
Yeah.
try it for for a month. And then if otherwise you're hired, or maybe we won't work together. And it worked out
Yeah.
really well. The team is still with me and
Oh my
we
gosh, I
push so
love
much
it.
content. And so the signals are everywhere. But you
Yeah.
have to be the person who has to take a pause. When you see it, you see if it's coming towards me, I have to take an action. And I use my kids as signals all the time, what they say.
Kids are great business coaches, right? For that
Yes.
exact reason. I mean, like, and I think I love that example just because it's so true. And again, it goes back to you had the awareness. Other business owners in that true operator mentality would be like, but I just have to get this done. I have to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do it like me. It's going to take too long. Da, da, da. And part of this, it's like a muscle. You have like let it go, like delegate, outsource, systematize, streamline, etc. It's Listen, business owners don't jump up out of bed in the day in the morning and be like, I want more systems, I want more structure, I want more process. It feels like a box.
Yeah.
It feels like it's going to stifle them. But it's actually the thing that's going to set them free. So when they realize that and they can shift their mindset around it in whatever shape or form, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, given the seat that you are in, you call it second seat, COO sits next to the CEO. Given all the buzz around AI,
Mm,
and everybody wants to automate the backend operations. Do you think it makes a COO's job slash seat less valuable or more? Are you worried? Should they be worried? I work with a lot of COOs in
mm,
10 to 50 million companies. But I also see the mindset, any
hmm
business owner who's running between 1 to 10.
hmm
So where do you see the line?
It's a great question. I can speak from the vantage point of the COO, right? And the CEO. I mean, now I have my own company, so I have this unique advantage of being like an operator and an owner,
Yeah.
but my default is the operator because that's what I've been doing. But with the team that we have now, we have about 15 fractional COOs. We have about 25 clients. AI, I mean, this is your lane, so AI is everything. What I believe for the exceptional COOs that are the true air traffic controller of a company, the true second in command, the ones that are the bridge from strategy to execution, from marketing, operations, finance. They're the like the glue that holds it all together. I don't think AI is making them less valuable. I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's making them more valuable. And here's why. You've heard this expression that AI isn't necessarily, I've heard it's not my quote, but it's not going to necessarily replace people's jobs. It's going to replace people who are not leveraging and using AI. Those are the jobs that are at risk. I'm generalizing. But when we come to the table and we bring all of the skill sets, expertise, experiences, and know-how of how to do what we do, because what we focus on is not just the what the company wants to grow and scale, but how you're doing the what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we can leverage tools like AI to streamline, automate, systematize, process, build, structure, all of that faster, more, which means it's more efficient, more effectively, so it gets done at a higher level. Which CEO wouldn't want that versus
Mhm.
the COO that's like, I'm old school. I do everything by sheets. I do everything by file. I do everything by notepad. I mean, we have a methodology and how we use things here. And I mean, you name one aspect of the business that I run my company on today, or that our clients are not benefiting of from the skill set of the COOs on how we use AI that isn't moving the needle across marketing, sales, operations, or finance. It's in everything.
Mhm.
Every day, every hour. I'm using it all the time. Our COOs are using it all the time, not because we're lazy, but it's like the faster path to the result, the best result, right? So I think this is where we are now. Listen, we have this conversation in 12, 18 months. Who knows, right? There's this whole
Yeah.
debate about like, again, this is your lane, but like, where do you draw the line between like, okay, now there's a judgment call. Now there's a decision that
Yeah.
needs to be made. Where do we like tip the pendulum and now AI is making the decisions about X, Y, and Z in the company? That's yeah, for another time maybe.
For sure. Yes, I think we
Yeah,
need to get into another episode to discuss that. But
yeah,
this has been a
exactly.
lovely conversation, Derek.
Yeah.
If people were to connect with you, and I think those who are convinced, or maybe they need a little bit more convincing on why they need to let go of some stuff, so they can scale
Sure.
sensibly and faster, where can they find you, and how can you help them?
Yes. So the best place to find us is the website. It's thecoosolution.com. I have a podcast where I talk about a lot of the stuff we talked about today. And there's also a quiz actually on the website that allows business owners to say, maybe they're asking themselves, I wonder if now might be the right time to think about bringing on a fractional COO. That could be a place to start. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn, so they can reach out to me there. So
All right. Well, thank you for
cool.
coming on. It has been a really wonderful conversation. I hope you had fun too. And
I
anybody who's
loved it.
listening,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank
you
you,
go
Aarti. I
find
appreciate
Derek
it.
on LinkedIn, Instagram. We're connected everywhere. And yeah, thank you for anybody who's listening. And thank you, Derek, for your time.
Thank you, Aarti. I appreciated it. Thank you.